Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode here from GuigLit. Today I'm going to be talking through A Christmas Carol on the EDUQAS GCSE exam board. I'm going to be providing a live walkthrough of how I would answer a question on this text. So as always, if you haven't already, please be sure to thumbs up this video. Please share this with friends, family and the like. And don't forget to hit the bell icon for more updates from your channel with all things books, beards and beyond. If you haven't already, we are available on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok, so be sure to join us there. What can you do in this video? As always, don't forget you can take notes as you go. Please be sure to ask a question in the comments. The GuigLit guarantee is I will always reply to every comment. I'm really grateful for them, really appreciate that. Also, revision tool. You can use this as a revision tool, revise it, go alone or with classmates. Look back through this, watch through this, discuss it together. You can use it to build mind maps if you're using it as a revision aid as well, and also use it to list any possible examples. I may use a lot of examples today for Christmas Carol, so maybe you will want to take those down to help build your own revision. So let's get down to the basics demands of the exam itself. Well, first of all, understand this comes in the second paper in English Literature for EDUQAS. This is assessed with two other things. It's either going to be a modern drama where I work, it's Blood Brothers, or unseen poetry as well will be the second thing. So understand this is one of three tests, mini tests I suppose you have in the test itself. In addition, it's going to be one question, just one question on the text. It's going to be worth a total of 40 marks. You are provided with an extract from the text, and it's often based on a character or a theme in the case of A Christmas Carol. Don't forget, you've got 45 minutes here. You could technically have up to 1 hour because the demands here are such that you have 2.5 hours in total. So there's one of the three that you will use for 1 hour, but I'd recommend that personally with the unseen poetry, of which I have a video on the channel as well. So, couple of key points before we get down to business on the live walkthrough. First of all, understand it's a novella. If you can make that slight adjustment in your answer and appreciate the fact that it's a novella and not a novel, that's really appreciated. You see that understanding because it is a small story, so therefore it is a novella. Remember, it's set in the Victorian era, so it's a Victorian era text, and also it's a didactic text. So what we mean by that is that it's there to teach a lesson to the society that reads it. This idea of judgment, this idea of giving and being selfless to those with less. A couple of things that I would recommend in terms of answering the question itself. So I always recommend starting with what I call a table or tabel opening. So you'd use title, T for title, A for author, B for background in the broader sense, and L as a link to the question. In addition, either you have one or two methods here, and it really depends on what extract you're provided with and where that extract lands in the novella. You'd either want to work through the extract, then go to the wider text. This isn't like other exam boards, which you have to start with the extract, or analyze it in total, where you put the extract in chronologically. So, for example, if the extract is the presentation of The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, which is the start of Stave 4, you'd maybe analyse through staves 1, 2, 3, then put the extract in. So it really depends where you wish to put the extract itself, but both methods can be very successful. You're largely going to be looking at writing 1/3 around the extract, that's about 3 points approximately, and then 2/3 on the wider text, so you're looking at 5 to 6 points on A Christmas Carol in the broader sense. So that's going to be really important as well. Okay, so you join us live now where we're about to do this properly. I have up, for the purposes of this, just a blank Word document. I've also got the 2020 examination paper, as you'll see here, and I've got a timer. I've given myself 45 minutes now. A couple of variables I just want to mention here. I know that there's going to be an element of, it's going to be a little bit kind of different because I'm going to be typing and working not pen to paper, so do bear that in mind. Also, I'm going to try and do this as best as I can by explaining my process in live, like through metacognition, okay? So this whole idea that I will talk through what I'm actually going to do. So let's start our timer. We have 45 minutes, timer's running, that's good. So this is what your paper will look like to some degree. You've got to search through section B, which is A Christmas Carol, okay? So we go to page 14. And we'll scroll through to see what there is. Now, I've deliberately not looked at this ahead of time, so I want to just show you my thought process as we go. So, as it says here, you are advised rather, to spend 45 minutes on this question. Use the extract below and your knowledge of the whole novel to answer the question. The beginning of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge says, "I wish to be left alone." Write about some of the events in the novel which cause Scrooge to change his mind and how they are presented. So notice, first of all, some of the events. It's not looking for every single event. That's really important, okay? And Scrooge to change his mind. Truthfully, a really good revision point or jump-off point, a start-off point is to just look at Scrooge because, you know, there's a real... he's in everything. So... in your response, you should refer to the extract and the novel as a whole. Folks, you can't get a substantial grade. You can't really pass if you're not doing both. Understanding of characters and events. And refer to the contexts of the novel. Okay, so we're going to be doing that as we go. And then I'm just going to start with analysing the extract and planning as I go. So we need to see where it is. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, crossed the hall to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. So I know this is going to be in stave 2. This is the Ghost of Christmas Past, okay? So this is going to be somewhere towards the beginning of my aspect and my sort of idea. So my plan, I'm just going to start planning now. Let's make this full screen as well. So let's make this so I can see the entirety of the page. Let's go here. Okay, right. So I think planning is essential. Okay, planning is vital in terms of what you do. So plan. Now I'm going to put that the extract, and that's going to be stave 2. Now, I need to make 3 points about the extract. Okay, so that's important in and of itself. But I also need to make points beyond that. Now, stave 1, I want to mention about Jacob Marley. That's really important because his role shows change there as well. I also want to mention about stave 3, the Ghost of Christmas Present. Ghost of Christmas Present and the Cratchits. But also, you've got another mention there of stave 3 and Fred. He shows why he should change. Stave 4 and the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. That's another vital one as well. So my plan is roughly formed already, but I need to get back to the extract just to see where we are. Before I do though, let's just see how we're doing for time. All right, so about 5 minutes planning should be about right, okay? So, cross the hall to a door at the back of the house, open before them, closed a long, bare, melancholy room. Melancholy room, okay, that's important because if you know Melancholy Tavern, this word melancholy comes up a lot with Scrooge. So they've got 1 point. Plain deal forms and death. Plain, sense of possible neglect, sense of not particular, a lot of love. So I've got 1 point in the bag already. Now, what's also interesting here, as I go, not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and scuffle from the mice behind the panelling. See how there's this repetition? Now, for those of you that know the text particularly well, in stave 1, there's this repetition of no, which again reinforces his kind of sadness, his negativity and cynicism, his pessimism in life. But notice this has an effect, okay? A softening influence and a freer passage to his tears. We see the sense of humanity. So, we then see, he exclaimed in ecstasy, "Why, it's Ali Baba. It's dear old honest Ali Baba. Yes, yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come for the first time, just like that. Poor boy, and Valentine, his wild brother, and so on." So we see this idea of excitement. Notice this constant use of exclamation marks. Poor boy, he's having sadness for looking at his former self. That's what's really important to see there. We carry on. An extraordinary voice between laughing and crying. We see there's loads of opportunity. They deliberately give you an extract that shows loads of change here. Okay. I wish Scrooge muttered. I think that shows this sense of regret and change. Now, I've got enough. There's always going to be more than what you can use, right? So it's important to understand that. So our question is asking about the notion of change, right? So Write about some of the events in the novel which caused Scrooge to change his mind and how they're presented. So let's create our table opening first of all, our table overview. So remember, T for title, A for author, B for background, L for link to question. Okay, so I would go with A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is a novella or novel. I prefer novella because it's just true to form. It's a novella which provides, let's say this, which provides a cautionary tale about how society should treat those less well off and change its attitudes on social justice. Note I've got that word change there. I think that's important. Yeah, could you have that there just to add to that? Okay. Our protagonist, Ebenezer Scrooge, is the embodiment of change throughout the novel. Let's just go novella, novel, text, switching it up is quite nice. From a man described as solitary as an oyster to one who completely changes by the end, becoming a second father to Tiny Tim. Now those quotes, I'm not analysing them, but it just has this flourish of that I know the novella, I know what I'm talking about, I've put that within what I'm doing. So that's kind of my overview. So you've got T for title, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, A author, background, a novella with a cautionary tale about society, social justice, link to question, protagonist, and change, right? So we're good to go. Okay. The first event. Now I've got my overview. I've done my table overview. I should have put that there before. That's done. We can check that off. Okay. We're now looking at the first event. The first event, to take place. Oh, let's go back there. Apologies. You can see how I'm doing this is live. It's a little bit fiddly. The first event to take place that demonstrates any sense of change to Scrooge is the appearance of his former business partner, Jacob Marley. Now, full cards on the table here, complete truth and honesty. I don't have the book in front of me. Now, a lot of people think, well, if I don't have the quote entirely right, surely I'm going to get, I'm not going to get marked for that. I'm going to lose marks here and there. You will not. Okay, they will award paraphrased quotes. By that I mean quotes that are not entirely accurate. So go with it, trust your instinct, okay? His one-time associate, covered from head to toe in the chains I forged in life, are a reflection of Marley's sins to the reader. When Marley asks Scrooge, "Can you imagine the weight and length of the chain you bear?" we are already provided with a warning that Scrooge must heed. He is also told of how there is still a hope and chance that you may escape my fate. Okay, the words hope and chance, it's always good to dig into a quote, okay, provide the protagonist with an opportunity for change, which produces the catalyst for the events in the novel. Okay, so I've got two quotes there. And I've analysed one in brief here, but I've also provided a little dig here, the words hope and chance, okay? So there's an important bit there. Further on, in the extract provided, the ghost of Christmas past shows Scrooge his former self as a child. Now I'm going to go between here and the extract to make sure I've got this right. Okay. Here, the ghost shows a melancholy room. The use of this adjective is a demonstration of how Scrooge grows up. Another demonstration I prefer is an example of foreshadowing as regards how Scrooge goes up, as both his food and tavern in stave 1 are described as melancholy. We've got that melancholy room, possibly hinting to the reader of how Scrooge's miserable upbringing is reflected in his own adult life. Okay, so I've got 1 point. I want 2 more from there. Remember, we've got plenty from the extract. Gave free a passage to his tears. I'm going to pick that one. Okay, now I've got more than I need. Later on in the extract, these phrases, by the way, I think they're vital. These sort of phrases are really important, tracking phrases. Dickens describes how this scene helped to provide a freer passage to, now let's just get it exactly right, we have it in front of us, to his tears. Okay, to his tears. So, to his, Scrooge's tears. The use of the word tears here is the first clear indication of change that we see in Scrooge. That we've already used miserable, that the dour upbringing Scrooge endured is one to pity, which in turn allows himself to be more empathetic and understanding. Okay, so I've used 2 quotes now. Melancholy room, freer passage to his tears. Remember, if this was handwritten, it wouldn't look exactly the same as well, so you have to give yourself a little bit of leeway there. I'm going to put in a 4th, just a small little 4th one here. We also, further on, again, a good tracking phrase. T. Scrooge exclaim, poor boy. Where, again, demonstrating his shock and upset at the sight of how he grew up. Just a nice little point to put there. If you can afford to, let's just check in on our time. Okay, we're good for time. We're more than good for time. Okay, we've got 1 quote, we've got 2 quotes, we've got 3 quotes going on already from the extract. It'd be nice to do a little extraordinary voice between laughing and crying. I like that one as well. Later on in the same extract, Dickens describes how Scrooge speaks or produces an extraordinary, should get this right, check I've got the exact word. Extraordinary voice, yes. Extraordinary voice between laughing and crying. Here, the contrast of laughing and crying shows in a clearer sense, the change that Scrooge is going through. It's as he is between two extremes of emotions. The extract, now a little bit more than you need, but I'm just going to provide this to give you sort of top response. The extract then concludes with Scrooge uttering a regret that he wished. Now, he says wish, doesn't he? Now, here's the thing that happens often. If the word exactly isn't the same in a quote, I wish I should have liked to give him something, yes. Okay, so we need to conjugate this slightly. How he wished he had offered some money to the caroller at the door. Fully demonstrating a change of attitude and mind in the protagonist. Okay, again, I'm typing, so factor these little things in. It's not exactly going to be the same, but we've got the same method going on here. So we then look back to the plan. I've got my plan. I've done Marley. I've done the stave. I'm about halfway now. Now, we've also got, so it goes to Christmas present and the Cratchits. Okay, now we're back to the novel itself, or novella. As the novel progresses, in stave 3, Scrooge is presented by the ghost of Christmas present with a Christmas scene involving Bob Cratchit, his employee, and his family celebrating the occasion. Here is the first instance of Scrooge seeing Tiny Tim. When Scrooge asks the ghost say he will be spared, we see another instance of change in Scrooge, that he is considering the fate of someone weaker and more vulnerable than himself. The ghost responds with Scrooge's own words. Decrease the surplus population. Now, here's a good example of putting in some context, which not only forces Scrooge to confront his own Malthusian beliefs on population and the poor. Okay, look up Thomas Malthus and look up the idea of the Victorian philosophies and beliefs on poverty and the poor there. So it's just a nice little way of putting in context. Context should be just like a subordinate clause. Shouldn't be a massive thing in what you do. It only forces Scrooge to confront his own Malthusian beliefs on population and the poor, but also the contextual readership of the time, encouraging them to change their views. Okay, nice bit of context there just to help analyze what you're doing. So again, remember, with the other examples around this, you're not going to have the book, so you're not going to expect it to be doing half as much with the quotes you have as you actually do in terms of the extract. So I've mentioned about it goes to Chris past, have a different time. Okay, so we shaved another 5 minutes off. Further on in this stave, Scrooge's nephew Fred provides an opportunity for change to our protagonist. Here, when Scrooge is presented with a Christmas scene hosted by his nephew, Fred is heard to exclaim, I pity him, and I mean to give him the same chance every year. Now, I like these quotes. I want to kind of combine them together in my analysis. So here, the verb, excuse me, use it something you do, the verb pity and phrase every year demonstrates to Scrooge how he has an opportunity to change for the better in the form of his last remaining relative. Now, in the thoughts of this, folks, I've missed out a number of things. You can mention Fezziwig, you can mention Scrooge's sister Fan. There's loads of things you can mention there in that regards. So you've got that as well, which is important. So, so we've got those. Pity every year that are constantly analysed, constantly got those dig elements in of pity of every year. And now we're down to the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, which is about as many words we're going to write. We're already at 650 words roughly. So in terms of your word count, it's about where you're going to be. Now, obviously, I should really take 10, maybe 15 minutes off this because I'm typing. If I was handwriting this, I'd be much slower. Lastly, in the novella, the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come provides arguably the most morbid and somber reasons for Scrooge to change. Not only does Scrooge witness the death of Tiny Tim, he also poignantly sees his own grave. Here, he begs the ghost or the spirit that answer if these words shall be erased, men's fortunes precede certain ends. I'm not entirely sure that's fully right. Here, implying that he has to know if he can change at all. Scrooge's final utterances in this stave, that I will live in the past, the present and future, and keep Christmas in my heart, consolidate or solidify Scrooge's change in the novel. Is there anything I do with that? There's some things I'm not entirely happy with. These words shall be erased, or men's fortunes precede certain ends. Here implying has no you can change at all. Scrooge's final utterance, I will. Okay, so particularly in the determined tone of I will. So it's just a good little thing to pick out there. Now, do you need a conclusion? Not necessarily. It's always better to have one extra point than a conclusion, I must admit. So don't sacrifice a point for a conclusion, that's what I'm saying. But if I can give you sort of one last thing, if you did want a conclusion, want to put something in conclusion, Dickens uses Ebenezer Scrooge and his journey of change from a neglected child to the fate of his those less fortunate than himself, to not only provide the protagonist with an opportunity of redemption, but also to hold a mirror to the Victorian value system around poverty, social justice, and those less well off. So that would be word count wise. We're clocking in at around 800 words here if we take out the plan. What I would suggest, if I could do anything differently, I mean, the points are all right. It's comprehensive enough. It covers the entire novel, albeit there are certain bits you could arguably put in. The only other thing I could possibly suggest to put in, if there's anything, maybe the element of Fezziwig, as I said before, but that whole essay roughly has that right, there or thereabouts. So there we are. So thank you as always for tuning in. I hope that walkthrough was useful for you. As always, drop a comment if there's anything I can answer. The GuigLit guarantee is I will always respond back. Like, share and subscribe as always. Don't forget to search GuigLit across all the different social media accounts. And as always, until next time, take care, all the very best, and bye-bye.